So last step to really talk through is social media. And this is big to a lot of us. It's changed a lot of people's lives. But the last gear really has to do with social media and how that really plays a role with a brand in this whole process. Because getting back to Google for a minute, before social media, they just purely looked at links from web pages. You fast forward to today, and there are many theories that suggest that the more a page or a site is engaged with social media, the better Google is going to rank it. There are actually some videos out there that you can see that when you go onto Google Plus and you start putting your information onto Google Plus, it helps you to really get better results through Google. So engaging with social media is super critical if you want to get to the top of the rankings. The statistics on social media are pretty staggering, and frankly, I think this is why we get a lot of the questions that we get as a company. People want to take advantage of this. There are 1 billion people on Facebook. How do we get exposure to that audience in the right way? Or Twitter is being called the social soundtrack of television. How can we leverage that? How do we get more followers? How do we get more interaction? How do we get more engagement? All those things are important to them, and we think are important to the process. But if you think I get a lot of eye rolling about blogging, going to an executive or owner of a business and saying, your employees really ought to be spending more time on Facebook or Twitter is sometimes a difficult proposition. They don't typically agree with me on that, and they think that's a waste of time, and I'm not on Facebook, so why is it important, and who's going to buy something from Facebook? Getting back to the idea of the 4 gears, one of them breaks down, the other 3 are going to come to a halt. So if I can get past the eye rolling, and I can convince them that wading into this water is important, and again, this is not everybody, this is changing pretty quickly, then really the process to the now what do we do? There are a few things that you can do. The first is to set goals, short-term goals or long-term goals. Build a team. Who's going to handle this? Who's going to manage it? Internally and externally. Identify the right social networks for you. And for an insurance agency that sells property and casualty insurance, it's very different than with a boy band that is trying to get to the top and they're a brand new entity. They want to go where teenagers are. So you just have to think through what the right networks are for you. That's probably the most important thing. Figure out a plan to share content, and this all depends on you having good content, something that's worthy of sharing, something that people are going to like, they're going to repost. Again, no one is going to repost your advertisement unless they're your friend and they're doing you a favor. So you have to think about content that is really meaningful, really impacts that audience. And in doing that, you stand a better chance of getting the engagement. Policy is important to people all the time. It's always to companies, it's always an interesting thing when they say, well, how are we going to regulate this? And usually with good companies, you say, it's the same way. You hire good people and you train them on how to use this tool. And in the same way, they might go to a networking function without you and interact with customers, and you're proud of their efforts there. You would expect that their abilities are going to be the same on social networks. So getting some companies past that hurdle of fear of what might happen is often an issue. And then figure out ways to measure success and adjust based upon what you're seeing. I love this quote by Jeff Bezos that just talks about really paying for advertising is really a penalty. That you have to pay if your ideas and your product and your service, aren't remarkable. And so, not that those things are easy, but it does make the point that the more remarkable your thinking is and your ideas, the better off you're going to be. A couple of quick examples, which I think are pretty cool, and some of these you may have seen, but Bolthouse Farms, which does a lot of the juices that you'll see in Publix. They have all sorts of promotions they do on Instagram, and they're actually going so far to figure out what that selfish customer wants. That selfish customer might want $1.50 off their next purchase. We're just asking you to do a few things. We want you to snap something, tag it, get it, and encourages you to share with your friends on Instagram what you're doing and how you like our product. And they're rewarding them for doing that. And they've been pretty innovative. They've done some other things with professional photographers they hired to go out and take their product and put it in some very, very creative places and have these photographers on Instagram who have large followings do something creative with the bottle. And so you saw one in front of the Eiffel Tower, and the Eiffel Tower looked shorter than the bottle. You saw one on a main thoroughfare, busy traffic in New York City, and everyone had fun with it, and it was creative. So it helped to really bolster the brand. Here's a really cool example. If you're Nilla Wafers and you're looking to get your message out there using social media, then temptation would be to put a coupon out there or to sell it. But what they've done is sort of create a humor campaign that they call momisms. And momisms are creative sayings that would appeal to their audience, who are moms. And these are pieces that are designed to be shared and reshared on Pinterest. And so they have a pretty big following and a pretty big activity hub on Pinterest. And again, people are sharing these not because they say Nilla. Notice how small that is in the grand scheme of things. What they're really doing is saying, we have a pretty cool series of content which you think you're going to find funny, and people reshare them because the moms think it resonates with them. May not resonate with the dads, may not resonate with teenagers, but that's not the point. They want that target audience. Another quick example is, that, and many of you saw this, this is one of the most interesting social media successes. Had sort of some drama after it because there was some conflict with the agency and everything else. But this was brilliant. When there was a Super Bowl blackout, if you remember a couple years ago, the lights went out and there was a 45-minute delay. Oreo took advantage of that and said, you can still dunk in the dark, okay, while the whole, the most captive audience was there waiting for the game to start again. And this thing got retweeted. I don't know the numbers, but it was astounding, the results they got. And there was really no cost to them to do that other than being prepared, being creative, and being ready when an opportunity presented itself. And these don't happen all the time, but I think it does go to illustrate the point that if you are aware, you're in tune as a brand, and you're thinking about your circumstances and how you fit in, then you stand a pretty good chance. And notice that really not selling anything or advertising, it's just humor. So as I wrap up, I want to think about the 4 gears again, just as we close. I wanted to just show you the breakdown because, again, they're interdependent. And a lot of times a client will say to me, can't we just, put the right tags or key terms in the pages? Won't that help us? Or they might want to skip something else. So I want to do X, Y, or Z, but when it comes to Facebook, I'm just not comfortable. So if you think about the example of, if you say, I really don't want the blog thing. I'm okay, we'll have a Facebook account, but I really don't want to do the blogging. Well, the whole thing comes to a screeching halt because you're not feeding anything to Google. You got nothing to share on your social networks because you've not created anything that resonates with an audience. So you have to look at them interdependently. At the same time, if you don't define the audience and really spend time digging into what they want, what they need, and what they care about, then you run the risk of creating content that's very watered down and doesn't mean anything to anyone. So just as a couple of points there to illustrate that. So the book itself goes over this model, goes over the detail. There's a lot of tools. There are a lot of practical examples, and would really like your feedback on it. Would love to hear what you think, what you agree with, what you don't. It's available on Amazon.com. There's also a website for the book, foundthebook.com, and there are links to all sorts of resources there. And I hope you find it useful. So thank you very much.